I'll tell you where it is. You know, people say this is the middle of nowhere. This is not the middle of nowhere. This is the edge of nowhere. When I got here, there were no roads. There was no electricity. There was no telephone. There was nothing. You know, there was no internet connectivity, nothing.
The clinic in the region where the original Surmang clinic is really the only medical care that's available in a wide area.
最远的可能要200公里左右的来，骑马、骑摩托车都有，到处有，西藏的、青海的，甚至那个四川的也有，各个地方的病人特别多。
The clinic became a kind of field of dreams for us. That we built it and then they came, as Kevin Costner said.
特别那时候那样的话，特别缺医生。说实话，冬天差不多，我们药够的话，平均有100多个病人有了，但是好多药不够。我们2个人看的话，最多的时候300-400个人有了。
一天？
对，有一次416个，有时候2-3天都睡不上。
They come in for, all kinds of problems, everything from a dog bite or stabbing to, I have a headache or, I have a stomach ache.
It got to be kind of a joke with volunteer doctors because the doctor would ask the patient, what's the problem? And the patient would say, I've got a stomach ache. And the doctor would say, how long have you had the stomach ache? And the patient would say, 10 years.
Before any of these clinics are there, people would get a dog bite. They would wrap it up, and it would get infected, and then people would die from a dog bite. And it wasn't rabies that was killing people from a dog bite. It was just the fact that the wound hadn't been cleaned. They didn't get antibiotics, in a timely way and things like that. So it makes a huge difference to have local medical care with enough skill to do things like take sutures, treat infections that people get.
我是就本地的，就这个苏蒙地区长大的。以前的话，说实话，特别这些医疗方面，这些地方交通也不便，尤其是到了冬天就没法。比如说有一个阑尾炎一类要特别急的那种做手术的那种，你想办法骑摩托车啊、骑马啊那些，你要买这些药，在大医院、在大城市里去骑马，最少都4-5天。
开车得要走1天1夜，因为路非常不好。
没得办法，这些地方有些死了。
There are two issues, and it's not a question at this point of affordability. It's a question of access to the care and the quality of the care itself. So those are two things that we bring. We're putting a high quality clinic in a fairly remote place.
用处非常大，因为第一是不收费，然后第二是比较说这附近最近的诊所就是这个，然后有仪器可以检查一些小病，然后我们觉得很危险，让他们去大医院，最起码他们得知道他们这个得的病是大的还是小的，所以非常有用。
They don't have to think about filling out forms. They don't have to think about speaking another language. And the providers here are from this area. They're from this valley. One of the things that I'm proud of about this foundation is we trust the intelligence of these people, whether they're farmers or nomads or highly educated, and most of them not educated at all. And most of them are very, very poor, make like 1 UN, which is about 15 cents a day. And I look at these people as being a highly intelligent people for one and only one very good reason, and that is that they can survive here. And I could never do it.
The first year I came to the clinic, we didn't see any women and very few children.
The people who were coming in were mainly men, and they were mainly men who had one of two problems, either stomach or arthritis in their knees.
There was no care for pregnant women and in the area.
At a certain point, which was in 2001, Dr. Julie Carpenter asked the following question of me: how come there are no women and children in this clinic? We began a journey at that point on mother and child health.
We actually started to interview the women and find out what was really happening, behind the curtain, so to speak. In the beginning, one probably out of 4 babies died within the first weeks. Women, about 1 out of 10 women were dying, and in the U.S., I think it's 1 out of 1,000 women that dies.
I met with the community health workers. It was just myself, an interpreter, and them. And I said, look, there's nobody here. There's no government here. There's nobody here. There's nobody, just you and me. I said, what can we do better than what we've already done? And this one woman got very, very agitated, and to the point of starting to choke up, but she sounded angry at the same time as kind of crying and yelling at me, and she was pointing the finger at me, and she said, you could have come here 10 years earlier, because there's so many women who are dead who would be walking the earth now. I remember children who have been babies that were brought back from the edge of death who had sepsis. Mothers who were in nomadic encampments way on top of this mountain, who were brought back in gurneys to give birth, who were afraid of hemorrhaging. There are a lot of stories like that. Non-infectious diseases like maternal mortality and infant mortality are caused by only lack of access to medical care and lack of early intervention. That when you get that problem, does it take 4 hours to see a provider, or does it take 4 minutes? And does the provider know how to treat you?
And a lot of times, the mothers and babies who die, it's needless. In other words, with very little training, these deaths can be averted. The community health worker program trained about 40 women from villages as far as, I think, 10 or 20 kilometers away from the clinic in clean, sanitary birthing and basic infant resuscitation and delivering the placenta and so that women don't bleed and this sort of thing. So that program has been really successful. And the women who are trained as community health workers, many of them are not literate, but have been trained with basically verbal and pictures, to be able to manage complications. And
we're trying to give them as much medical information as we can, mostly about this is something you should come and to the clinic for. These are things that you should present for and tell people to come here for.
In losing your mother in childbirth in Tibet, it was a really common thing, and still is in much of the rural areas. And in the Surmang area, the community health worker program has made a huge dent in that. And hopefully the birthing room will bring that rate down even further.
Well, for one thing, in this area, which had world record high maternal mortality, in this catchment, we've reduced it to 0. And you almost want to pack your bags and go home. But we have a lot more work to do because we've made a model from that, and that model is being prototyped in partnership with the Public Health Bureau of Yushu Prefecture. I think we're good partners. We don't have any other subtle strategies or hidden agendas with this. The thing that I brag about most is actually one of our biggest problems, and that is that we operate on a shoestring, and we're not getting money from any government, we're not getting any money from any big international foundation, nor are we getting any money from any church. It means that we're basically church mice, a foundation. I think the real question is, what do you have to do to make a difference in this world? If you want to make a difference that costs $1, does having $10,000 make a 10,000 times bigger difference? And we've not had the finances to test that theory. We've only been on the $1 side. Our resources are so limited. I mean, that we have to, I don't know how to say this, get the biggest bang for the buck, and that coincidentally has to be the one area that is the least approached directly and strategically in this world, which is maternal and infant mortality. We found that probably dollar for dollar that our work has an outsized impact on the way things are done. Women die in these places from non-infectious diseases. They bleed to death when they give birth. They'll have 12 pregnancies to have 4 children. And this is not a complaining culture. They bear it strongly. These are strong people. We don't believe that a woman should have 12 pregnancies to have 4 live births. And we don't believe that a woman should give birth to babies in the bushes or in a cattle byre by herself. We don't believe that babies should face the prospect of dying from dehydration caused by diarrhea. So when we bring those people in, those women and children in to the front place of our work, we are casting an implied, very, very strong vote for Tibetan culture. And that's why we say, if you want to save a culture, save a mother.